It's Cash Color Cannabis, a high level of conversation on LivehiphopDaily.tv, and this episode is sponsored by Bouquet Rolling Papers. Experience the smooth burn of their classic rolling papers. Bouquet understands the art of rolling as a timeless craft, so enjoy what's simply natural. Check out Bouquet today and click the link in the description when this episode goes live and make your purchase. All right, without further ado, man, I got a guest who's in the building who I've been wanting to have on for a little while now. He's running for Attorney General of Georgia. He shares a lot of the same similar thoughts that I have when it comes to cannabis, decriminalization, and a lot of things like that. But I'm not gonna dare try to do the intro for this man. It's Christian Y. Smith. Christian, how you doing?
Doing great. How you doing, good brother?
Brother, I'm amazing today, man. Like I say, I was very honored to have you in the studio. And actually, before we really just go fully into the interview, man, just please, you do your own intro and tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, before I do that, I just want to say thank you to you and your team for welcoming me, for allowing me to tell my story. And I think that what you guys do around the education piece of this, that we're going to get into a lot tonight.
Yeah.
So, I appreciate you guys for, coming on your platform. And just jumping right in, I grew up in the justice system.
Yeah.
I grew up seeing my mom in and out of jail. I was with my grandmother as a kid and saw her get arrested and police strip her down to her underwear.
Oh.
One of my uncles, Steve Wise, he's serving a life sentence for murder. My uncle Keith Wise passed away in 2008. He was 46 years old, addicted to crack cocaine. My uncle Franklin just passed away last week, 56 years old, served 9 years. So I grew up seeing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I grew up, nobody expected me to become anything. My mom actually lost custody of me. I got kicked out of school when I was 17. Selling stolen clothes out of the trunk of my car, came this close twice to, I was going to start selling weed. At the time, you could get a quarter pound for $2.50 in Cincinnati. I don't know how much it costs now for a QP.
Yeah, not that.
But, yeah. This is over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But, I was going to break it down into dime bags and start moving it. But, fortunately, I didn't go that route. Fortunately, I became the first in my family to graduate from college. Then I went and got a master's degree before getting a law degree. But it's important for me to say, I didn't do it myself.
Yeah.
It was William Dean Sr., black police officer. Most of my friends, we were all raised by single moms, but my brother Scott, he was raised by a single dad. And he was one of our football coaches too, and he would open up his house and say, man, y'all can sleep on the couch, sleep on the floor, wherever you can find a spot, because he didn't want us out on the streets for everything that was out there outside them doors. And, he just let us, enjoy ourselves in the house, under his roof. So, he saved my life. I always give him credit whenever I do interviews. I think it's important for people to know that. And now, I'm trying to do the same thing in the justice system, man. Like, oddly enough, with the background that I have, I would have never thought I would have been a prosecutor.
Yeah.
Like, never.
It doesn't sound like you have the background of that. I feel you.
But, before I took my first job in 2013, I spoke to my cousin Marcus. He's a rapper by the name of Lantana. He had a hit a couple years ago, All Hustle No Luck, with Pusha T, Bun B, and Yo Gotti. But he served 4 years from age 19 to 23. And I remember talking to him like, yo, cuz, like, how you feel about me taking this job? How you think people in our family, people in the hood will feel about that? He was like, man, take it. It's like, you can't save everybody, but you can save somebody.
Yeah.
It was like, you will understand the challenges that people in the courtroom are going through in ways that nobody else will be able to. You'll be able to do something about it. But at this point, I'm going to stop because I feel like I'm taking over.
No, it's no problem, man. And honestly, I love how you even ended that, because really representation matters. And we would need to see a you in courtrooms. We would need to know that somebody like who came up from our same background was able to come up into this other system and actually be able to represent us. There's so many times I see brothers going through jail and go through the judicial system, and the representation they have, whether it be from public defenders, even people they got to pay, looks no one like them and hasn't had any type of experience that they had. They just really trying to get this check and make sure that they check boxes, like we were saying before, make sure they check boxes. So, yeah, it was important that you did what you did, man.
Man, I went down. I had to help out a buddy down in Henry County this week. I went to court for him. All defendants were black, but everybody else in the courtroom was white. Prosecutor, public defender, judge. And to your point, like that's what my cousin meant when he was like, take the job, and what you just said.
Yeah.
Because In the justice system, people care so much about convictions and they care about numbers. They don't care about the person. Like the name on, there's a name on the file before there's a number on the file. And that name is a human being.
Yep.
And we need to care about that in the justice system, because you can change that human being's life.
Yeah.
If you put them on, if you give them the opportunities to do right, if they can. You can't save everybody.
No, you can't save everybody, man. But you're doing a good job at what you're trying to do, especially getting into the political world. Now, I was listening to a podcast with you where you did an interview, and you have such a unique story in how you got into politics, and it totally involves mistaken identity, man. Tell us about the story about the moment you realized you was going to get into politics and how a basic stop turned that story into, man, I got to get into politics.
Changed my life, man. March 11th, 2005.
He remember the day. I love people like that. Like, yeah, the day.
So in college, I majored in healthcare administration. You know, initially my dream was to be a hospital CEO. So my school required you to do an internship at a hospital before you graduated. And I knew I wanted to move to the A. You know, my school was in Ohio, didn't have any relationships down here. I found the CEO of Grady, found his phone number, Dr. Andrew Aguinobi. Call him, he puts me off with this dude named Mark Radke. Playing phone tag, getting to know his assistant on a first name basis, not getting the answer. I borrowed a friend's car, shout out to Jessica Skosic. Drove 9 hours from Athens, Ohio down to the A, show up at Grady March 11, 2005. See police cars, news vans everywhere. I thought President Bush was at Grady. I mean, that's what it looked like. So I'm creeping, 2 miles an hour. Next thing I know, cops, full riot gear, AR, stop the car. So I'm like, yo, get out the car. Like, what I do? I'm dressed, well, I had a, tie on, jacket. I'm just trying to find an internship. I get out the car, the AR-15's on my face. And I'm at this point, I'm like, yo, like, what's going on? Like, I just got off the road from Ohio. They, take my wallet out, look at my license. They run the plates on the car got Ohio plates. Then they just say, get out of here. They never tell me why they stopped me, never told me what I did. And I'm like, I had 2 AR-15s in my face.
Yeah, we got questions.
So yeah, man, at that moment, once I got in the hospital and found out what Brian Nichols, what just happened, they brought all the victims to Grady. There was the manhunt for him. They thought I fit the description. They thought I was Brian Nichols. And so on my ride home, that 9-hour drive home, a moment like that, I mean, this is 20-some years later, and I still remember it like it was yesterday. On that drive home, I was just like, man, like, how can I be the difference one day to save somebody from that
situation?
You know what I mean? Like, what led him to the point where, one, the crime he was charged with was crazy and heinous anyway.
Yeah.
But then for him to do what he did, I'm like, I know I want to be the difference between at least one black man going to college instead of prison on that ride home. Yeah, man.
It's real though too. The fit in the description mode, because I fit the description almost every time you hear the news. Like, I'm 6'3", dark skinned, black male. Yep. Like there's almost no time I don't fit a description.
Right.
And and that's a problem in itself, that how easy we can fit a description. But it goes back to representation matters. Yeah. We don't see people like ourselves in positions of being attorneys, even being cops who give a shit. We keep seeing people who see us absolutely as the villain in their story.
It's important to talk about history, though, and that's why in my opinion, that's why there's been this big push lately about the whole CRT thing in schools.
Stopping
and
that.
People wanting to get rid of the history of where we come from in America. And our policing system, our justice system, is rooted in slavery. When slavery ends, I'm talking about like days after Juneteenth, these laws were passed called black codes. And what black codes did was allow the powers that be to re-enslave us for things as little as vagrancy laws, right? So at that time, we just got kicked off plantations, right? None of us had anything. So we were all living in poor living conditions. The slaves, the black folks who fought in the Civil War, they were armed to fight in the Civil War. Well, when black codes were passed, it allowed them to be disarmed. So you got to think about just the history of how the system started. And it was rooted and based in, like you said, us being the villain. It was slavery was all about money, right? So it was we just lost all of this free labor, right? So how do we get it back?
Yep.
We passed laws to criminalize every little thing, and there was no prisons back then, so they got put back on plantations to do forced hard labor. And so let's fast forward. I'll just keep it here in Atlanta since this is where we are, and since you brought up the word representation. Atlanta didn't get its first black police officer until 1946. So you think about the end of slavery, over 100 years, almost 200 years until we get the first black police officer.
Oh, there's people who are still alive who remember that. Like, 1946 wasn't that far ago.
It wasn't.
Like, there's people who are alive who remember that day.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, representation does matter. So we do need to see more people like yourself in positions that can actually change something or can actually have a voice. Now, when you thought about getting involved into politics, though, you're a non-Georgia resident. Now, I'm not from Georgia either. I'm not from Atlanta. I'm from Boston. Getting anything involved down here when it comes to, like, trying to get your voice heard can be hard because in Atlanta and especially in Georgia, things are almost like passed down from generation to generation. We have families who've been in politics. You have people who have certain names they'll always remember. When you thought about getting involved in politics down here, did you understand or you think about the difficulty that would be being that you're not from here?
I didn't. Okay. Because of, I think all of us, right, our childhoods play a big role in who we are as adults. You know, it's the foundation for who we are. And, you know, my childhood, it was hell going through it. Yeah. But I wouldn't change it now because it just gives me the boldness that I have. It gives me the passion that I have. And nothing that comes at me politically or professionally is going to be as hard as seeing my mama in jail or sleeping on the floor or not eating or, you know what I'm saying, or paying rent or my mama's bills when I was 15. So nothing is harder than that. And so to me, it's just been like, yo, I got something in me that I don't think anybody in this arena has. And I want to use my foundation of my education on top of my background to say, you know what, and I don't want to discredit somebody if there is one, but I don't think that there are many people with the background that I have in politics. And I said I want to be a voice, right? We keep saying we want to change, but we don't have people who step up from our communities. But that's on purpose. We've been conditioned to think that we're not qualified and we're not capable and we're not smart enough and we don't know enough people to run for political offices. So whether I win or lose, you know, part of me being in this race is bigger than myself. I really hope to inspire a lot of people to say, you know what, we can't keep relying on other people to come in and change our communities. We can't keep relying on other people to understand our difficulties and our struggles. Like, if we want to see those changes, we can raise up people from where we're from, people who know what it's like, and say, you know what, let me put these folks in office and make the changes we need.
Yeah. Now, this isn't your first time. Like, currently you're running for Attorney General, and this isn't your first time running.
Nah.
What have you learned? First off, talk about your first time running for this office, and what did you learn from that first time that you feel like you could take into this race right here that helps you become a better candidate?
So, excuse me, in 2020, I ran for Fulton DA, and in that race, everything that could have went wrong. COVID broke out, I mean, right after we launched the campaign, so I was only able to do one, you know, in-person event before everything got shut down. You know, everybody was getting laid off at that time. You know, jobs were closing. My wife actually got laid off at that time. So a big part of running the campaign is raising money.
Yep.
So I didn't call a single person to ask for political money because it just didn't feel right. I'm like, I don't know if they're in the same situation that I'm in where you just lost income in the house and you're struggling. So I didn't fundraise for about 3 months. My campaign manager got sick. He was in the hospital for 45 days. And then the kicker is George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery.
Took all the air out the room.
So when that happened, you know, forget the other stuff I mentioned. When those three things happened, I said, you know what? Before I'm a lawyer, before I'm a candidate for this office, as somebody who's, you know, suffered mistreatment and misconduct at the hands of police, I'm like, you see a big black dude. Before I open my mouth, before you know anything about me, like you mentioned, you see a 6'4", 280-pound black dude with a beard. People think, you know, I'm intimidating.
Yes.
So I drove down to Brunswick and I protested for Ahmaud Arbery. I didn't wear nothing saying that I was campaigning. It wasn't about the campaign. At that moment, it was about, all of those experiences I had, like I mentioned earlier, and being in this position now where I'm like, I want to be a voice for people who look like me. And then I also wanted to really start to educate folks on the history of policing and how DAs, since I was running for DA, are really the gatekeepers. If the police do something outside the box, it's the DA who's supposed to prosecute them, just like they prosecute Young Thug or prosecute you or me.
Yeah.
But what's been happening for so long is that DAs, because they take money from police unions, because of that relationship, folks think that DAs and police are a lot of times in the same department. They're separate. And I started calling out DAs and saying we got to start holding bad police accountable. And I was careful to say, because I know a bunch of police officers. I mean, I was a prosecutor for 7 years, and I know a bunch of great cops. So I didn't want to put all cops in a box. But the bad cops, we got to root out. And so, in that campaign, man, answer your question, I know I took a while to get here. What I learned, though, was one, just to continue to be myself. I think people are in the space now where we're tired of cookie cutter politicians, politicians with no plan, politicians who don't give clear answers. I give a clear answer on everything. I don't give middle of the road answers. It's black, white, yes, no, left, right. When you driving, you can't turn maybe. You got to turn left or right. So I think if you're going to be an elected official, you got to be able to say what you're going to decide. So I learned that. And then the last thing I'll say I learned was just really wanting to see black people and minorities understand how important politics is. I went to, I got a shout out parlay from the Franchise Boys. He and I led a protest march down Bankhead. And we did it the day before my election in 2020. You think about all the legends we've had in Atlanta, Martin Luther King, Andy Young, John Lewis, C.T. I mean, everybody. Nobody ever marched down the west side on Bankhead. And so, but doing things like that, I just met so many people who said, man, my vote don't matter. Or like, Bankhead been looking like this for forever. Like, how is this going to change? And so this room we're sitting in, right, somebody had to zone this to be what it is.
Correct.
Somebody got voted in office who decided to zone this what it is. When you driving down the street and you get pulled over for not wearing your seatbelt, you got to go to court and pay a ticket. Somebody voted on how much to make that. Everything is about politics. And I just really want people to start understanding that. So what I understood was, or what I learned, be myself and educate. I don't know how long I'm going to have this platform, but while I'm here, while people will listen to me, I want people to walk away learning something. I want people to walk away feeling inspired. I want people to walk away feeling like they can see themselves in me. I would take off my jacket, but if I don't got on a suit, you see all my tattoos. Like I'm not the traditional cookie cutter politician, man. I'm of the people, and I just want people to know that.
Yeah, man, that's what's up, man. So as we watching the, right now we're seeing a lot of races pop up. It's about to be heavy out here. Getting engagement is important, and right now I feel like the hardest group to engage is the younger generation of voters. They're just not involved in the process, and they have many reasons why. Whether it be a flood of misinformation you're seeing on social media, or just as you mentioned, you're seeing a lack of actual action from people who've been, in my opinion, been sitting in office for way too long. I feel like there should be term limits on everybody, but that's a whole nother conversation.
I agree with you.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Totally agree.
How do you feel like, how hard is it for you to engage a younger group of a younger generation of voters, especially for a position that you have, which is not as sexy as a senator, not as sexy as a president? We're talking about district attorney. Attorney general, excuse me. Yeah. I
think it's the education piece, right? People always want to know, well, how does what you do impact or affect me? I think the education piece is one of it. So since we on your show, right?
Yeah.
Weed is a big issue in a lot of places across the country. But if you know that how somebody feels on an issue like that, right? Or anything that impacts young folks. whatever laws may pop up around social media. A lot of people get indicted, believe it or not, based off of what they post on social media.
Oh, we seeing it right now. A lot of it. Hey, bro, we watching that right now in real time.
So just understanding, what these candidates stand for on issues that impact your daily life. I mean, I think we got to get young people to understand that more. But I think purposefully, there's a reason why there's not really, you don't see much education around politics. Like you don't. No. It's not really easy to go find out what each position does. Like it might be on a website, but it might be buried underneath different tabs and different things. And if you watch the confirmation hearings for the new Supreme Court justice,
yes,
the country is ran by mostly middle-aged and older white men. And so, how do you get a 21-year-old to pay attention or care about what they're talking about, even though it does impact them? So having somebody who understands, social media and going to meet people where they are, I think is the biggest thing. Otherwise, will continue to miss young folks. You got to go meet them where they are.
Yeah, I agree, man. Not only is meeting where they are, but it's the whole education part. So many people are confused when it comes to elections. They think elections only mean president. Yep. Like we can have full conversations about how important it is for local politics, how important it is to know who your city council person is. Like I've said plenty of times on this show, whoever is a promoter at Gold Room on Sundays, y'all could get people elected. You know what I'm saying? The number of people you bring in here on a Sunday could get somebody elected because that's how few people vote in local elections. So it's about educating people on that level, that where your vote may not be as powerful as you may feel like it is on the presidential level, it's most certainly powerful when it comes to the people who make the decisions, like you mentioned, from how much this ticket going to be for this weed to how much that ticket going to be for your parking stick, for not having a seatbelt on, things like that. The people who directly impact your life.
Here's the analogy I like to give. If you go to the Hawks game, right, you can sit on the floor where you can, if a player walk by them, you might feel the breeze, or, if they inbounding the ball, you might be able to touch them. You know what I'm saying? Like we can reach out and touch them.
Yes.
That's what local politics is. You can reach out and touch your local council person or your commissioner, your school board person.
You'll see them in the mall.
Now,
down here, you'll see them in Lenox.
You get up on the state level, you start moving a little bit higher up the bleachers. It's harder to reach some state actors. Now, you're talking about president and folks on the federal level, you in the nosebleeds.
Yeah.
You can only watch them on TV from a distance. So you're right, man. The local, you right in the game. You sitting on the floor.
Yeah, understand. I got a good analogy for you. I always say that people complain about presidents. I'm like, so how many times at your job have you complained to your CEO about what's going on in your job? No, you tell your manager. The manager's a city council person. Like y'all yelling about city council stuff to a president. like trust me, he's not listening to you. Pay attention to the people who are right in front of you.
I like that. I'm gonna use that one too.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead and borrow that.
I always give credit, so I'm gonna let people know I got it from a good brother Mecca.
But one thing I did love about your campaign that made me want to have you on the show was your stance when it came to legalization, when it came to things like one of the I call it low hanging fruit. Is, and I've been actually a victim of this plenty of times, especially when I was living in Charlotte. Cops pulling you over because of this. I think I smell weed. I think I smell weed. Plenty of times I got stopped having a black and mild in my hand, but you thought it was a blunt. So that's enough for you to check me, pat me down, do a whole lot of stuff. So I like that you was touching on topics like that. Let's speak about your stance on legalization of cannabis. First off, do you feel like it could even happen in Georgia? And if it could happen, what would your role be in trying to make that happen?
Before I answer that, I got to talk about what you just said about the getting pulled over part. So the Fourth Amendment protects us from illegal searches and seizures, but there are exceptions. There are warrantless exceptions to the Fourth Amendment, and there's a vehicle exception, right? So if a police officer comes up to your car and they say they think they smell the odor of marijuana, that gives them permission to search your car without a warrant, like you said, your person, pat you down. So you could get pulled over for not having on a seatbelt or your brake light or something like that being out, and they come up and they say that automatically gets them in a search of your vehicle. That's some free legal advice for y'all. But in answering your question, I hope so. I hope we see legalization here in Georgia. I mean, we're seeing it happen in other states. And it will be big for it to happen in a southern state, just because of the whole history with slavery, and how so many. I want to say Georgia. If we're not number one, I know we're leading in terms of people on probation and people with marijuana convictions on their records, and that prohibits so many people from getting jobs, from getting loans for college,
From getting apartments,
car loans.
I can tell you that
all
right
of
now.
that. And so it blows my mind that when I go to Cali or I go to Seattle, they got stores where they got weed machines that look like vending machines, that look like video games. And I'm like, but we still locking folks up for that here in Georgia. And that blows my mind. So I hope that we get it. But once I get elected in November, you said, what can I do about it?
Yeah, what can you do about it?
Be an advocate, man.
Okay.
I can work with the state reps and the state senators to try to get legislation passed. One of the big things about the attorney general role that I think a lot of people don't understand is how big of a voice you just have, the pulpit you have. It's easy to get in front of the media if you're the attorney general to speak about issues. So just being that voice, right, say, I'm for legalization. How much would I do? I don't know, but it'll be there.
Yeah.
It'll definitely be there.
Yeah, definitely be the voice, man. Like you say, like we was just mentioning, representation matters. To have somebody on your level saying, I support legalization, that definitely could shake some tables. So going down that line, though, how do you feel about decriminalization? I spoke to you earlier about how we had Kwanzaa Hall on the show. When Kwanzaa was on the show, he actually introduced his idea to decriminalize in Fulton County. I thought decriminalization is I think it's a dope idea. As a matter of fact, I'm more decriminalization than I am legalization. Like, make sure we decriminalize this plant before you legalize this plant. Have you ever thought about the decriminalization, how important it is for us to start seeing decriminalization across the state of Georgia, and maybe that could be the thing that could lead to legalization?
Only reason I'm going to disagree with you is because if you decriminalize, it's still illegal. If it's legalized, that means nothing, right? Somebody can't wake up one day and decide, oh, I want to start doing some things or try to shake things up to make things more difficult. And this is not a knock at Kwanzaa Hall at all, but I want to say this. Back when that happened in the city of Atlanta, I think there was some misinformation around that because although it was decriminalized in the city of Atlanta, there's still the state law, right? So the state of Georgia still says that marijuana is illegal. So what I started seeing happen in the courtroom all the time with folks coming in, like, yo, I got arrested for possession less than an ounce. I thought it was legal in Atlanta.
That was happening hours after he passed that. Like, I remember that happening, hours.
And so what police started doing was writing it under the state law.
Yeah.
Because what happened in Atlanta City Council only impacted the city of Atlanta. And it didn't impact the state of Georgia. So police could still charge people and arrest people under the state law. So that's why I say I prefer legalization, because that means now you don't got to worry about city ordinances, county ordinances, state law. It's, all clear.
Yeah. So I've been noticing. So you and your candidate, you and your competitor, y'all pretty close as far as like numbers at this moment. How are you nervous right now about the race? Like, you actually could pull away, and it wouldn't even take that much for you to pull in front right now.
I feel great, man. Yeah. My competitor, my opponent, she's been a state senator a few times. In her 3 primary elections, she never combined. She hasn't gotten more votes than I got when I ran in 2020. I got 40,000 votes. It's about 25% of the vote. Nobody knew who I was. Youngest candidate by far, significantly less money. But we touched the people. Like, the people believed in it and were inspired by it. So my opponent is running scared, right? Like, she won't debate me. If I walk into a room that she's in, she walks out. She won't acknowledge me. She won't say hello.
Maybe it's racial profiling. She's like, I don't know what this dude is.
But that's my thing, right? Is how do you expect black folks to vote for you, but you won't even be cordial with the one black candidate in a race. So that's to me that bothers me, right? But then if you look at her commercial on TV or her flyers, it's her with black families, right? It's her playing a game. And so my whole thing, I said this earlier, it's about going to touch the people and letting the people know who you are. Like, yeah, she got over $1 million behind her name. She's been elected before. She related to Jimmy Carter somehow. She married his grandson or something.
Boy, I told you that lineage shit in Georgia is real. It's real, boy.
So, all that being said, though, man, my campaign, we decided to spend quite a bit of money on a poll because I wanted the cold, hard truth. I wanted to know if I was getting crushed.
Yeah.
I needed to know that. I wanted to know what voters thought about, me versus her. And when the numbers came back, I was like, we're going to win this.
Yeah.
Being down 3 points to somebody, like I just said, $1 million, been all of that shows me that if we just get a spark, if we just get, a few more people to know who I am, because, the AJC is not doing it. They won't say my name. The Atlanta Press Club, they held a debate for every office on the ballot except for Attorney General. So it looks like they're trying to hand this lady the Attorney General seat by ignoring me, by not even acknowledging that I'm a candidate. But once folks know, once folks hear my story, once folks, you can feel somebody's energy, man. Yeah. And I think, one of the things that I appreciate most is people always just tell me they feel my vibe, like they feel the energy. Like, this is my heart and soul for this campaign. Like, I'm not doing this to get famous. I damn sure ain't doing it to get rich. Like, I'm doing it because, like I said earlier, I don't know anybody else who went and overcame the hell that I did, and then to say that I'm a lawyer, like I don't take it lightly, man. I've had older, black folks just cry about that, seeing that I'm here and have these credentials, and like it means a lot to people, the position that I'm in, and I carry that, and it means a lot to me, and so. That's why I'm in this race, man, and I hope people feel that and see that.
Well, I love the fact that I don't see you on every commercial. Like, if you turn on any channel at this point, you're going to be besieged with commercials at this point. Matter of fact, sometimes I actually like the commercial of Donald Trump when he turns the TV off and says, "This is what your election looked like when it got stolen." Like, yeah, turn it off for a second, bro. Because every 2 seconds, y'all got a new commercial about these folks. But I haven't seen you out there. Where I see you at is online. Actually inside places. I like the fact you was in Savannah. You actually are walking around a project basically and touching people and explaining to these folks why your vote is needed in this election. And it wasn't just you just selling the story. You was engaging with actual people on the campaign trail. And I think that's a good sell in itself.
So I went down to Savannah maybe a month ago, and while we were there, shout out to Miss Tia Brightwell. She came up to me, and she lives in Fraser Holmes Projects, and she said that, nobody cares about people who live in the projects. She said she never saw, an elected official or a candidate come there, and I was like, I'm going to be back in 2 weeks. And she, of course, she like, whatever, lip service, I'm like, I'll be back in 2 weeks. So when I showed up, again, just like she moved by it. And when I got there, unbeknownst to me, there was a group of college kids there doing like a community cleanup, and she was a little upset about that. She was like, "Oh, they only here for a photo op," and they actually didn't even go inside of the project. They just kind of were like on the board, photo op, right? And
we ain't going too far in,
right? And they were like, "Oh, we gonna grill some hot dogs for the residents." Well, they had a grill set up way outside the gate, and at like 9 in the morning. Who up at 9 in the morning and want a hot dog?
Yeah.
So. I'm walking around with Miss Tia, and I said, you know what? I'm going to go to the grocery store around lunchtime, and we're going to come back with some hot dogs and folks up, and we're going to grill in the middle of the project. Because I just want people to just feel I just want to show some love. Yeah. You know what I mean? And show that somebody who come from a place like this can be whatever you want to be. You don't got to be a lawyer. You don't got to run for public office. But you can come from a place like that and have hope. You can come from a place like that and come back and inspire other people to do something. So, yeah, man, I appreciate you for bringing that up, man.
What's some of your favorite moments so far on the campaign trail? Because I know that's definitely a shining spot. But, you had to knock on doors. You've done a lot of things. Like, what's been some of your favorite moments so far?
That was definitely one. We went down to Pembroke, Georgia. A tornado hit there not too long ago. And just seeing just like how devastated this community is, man. And as Attorney General, like I don't have any power over helping people rebuild homes or anything like that, but just being there, hearing real stories, just connecting with people, right before I came here. The neighborhood that I live in has a lot of elderly folks in it, you know, elderly white folks, and just hanging out with them. It's been about the people, whether it's in the projects, whether it's folks in Buckhead, whether it's folks, all angles of life, man. It's been just connecting with people for me. But that Savannah one was special, man. I think that was definitely my favorite moment thus far, if I had to pick one.
That's what's up, man. What's on your campaign playlist? Like, what's some of the music you listen to when you go out here and knock on doors?
So I'm you know, I graduated from high school in 2001. I still listen to a lot of music from, I guess, my era. Like Outkast is my favorite of all time. In my opinion, you know, I can only speak for my 2 ears. Can't speak for nobody else's. Aquemini is the only perfect album ever made.
Oh, you definitely speaking to your ears. Illmatic is the perfect album. Like, but I'm gonna let you rock with that. But Illmatic is the perfect album of all time. Like from 1 to 11, like perfect album.
So, you know, I listen to a lot of Cass. I listen to a lot of old Gucci.
Okay. Listen to Gucci on the Trent campaign, right?
I was listening to his song on the way, Frisbees. You know, Gucci Man Colors. You know, I the old Gucci. Jeezy, you know, TM 101. I switch it up too. Like I throw some Kirk Franklin on.
There you go.
Kirk Franklin and the Family. I listen to his first album. I listen to some old school. Isley Brothers, Kool and the Gang. I be all over the place with it, man. I used to DJ in high school too. DJ Freeze. A lot of people who knew me growing up, like even back home, they still call me Freeze. So I love music, man. I listen to all of it, but you know, campaign mode, like I stick with my go-tos.
Hey, so you're from Cincinnati, and I'd be wrong if I didn't mention this. Shout out to my man Jay Black. Talk to me about this famous Cincinnati chili.
You know about it? You know about it?
Jay Black been telling us about, we say, yo, what's Cincinnati known for? He said, this chili. We was like, all right, I ain't never heard nobody say that, but cool.
So it's crazy when you grow up a certain way, right? Yeah. And then you go somewhere else and see people do it different. It shocks you. So in Cincinnati, we eat our chili with spaghetti noodles. And it's got, like, the seasoning is different. Like, it's got, like, cinnamon in it. It's I can't describe it, but it's just different. Yeah. And so I remember the first time I saw somebody, to me, it was just the sauce. I'm like, where the rest of your chili at? and they like, what you mean? I'm like, where the noodles? And it's like, noodles? And I'm like, oh. I'm like, we must only do this in Cincinnati. Yeah. So, yeah, man.
Lingo Steve need to be here for this.
So, yeah, man, you know, we call it, what I love is 3-way, 4-way, 5-way. 3-way, that's the noodles, the sauce, the cheese, and, you know, 4 is you add beans, you add other stuff to it. Cool. But I stick with the 3. Noodles, the sauce, and the cheese, throw some crackers in it, and I'm good to go.
All right, man.
Yeah. So on Valentine's Day every year, they got a dope marketing promo for Valentine's Day, and they always say something like, bring your girl here for a 3-way.
For a 3-way chili.
For a 3-way chili. Yeah, man. Chili. Shout out to Skyline.
All right, so in November, when you do win, what's going to be the first thing you do after you hear that you are the winner and you cross this finish line and you ran this race as strong as you ran it?
First 100 days, what that will look like is really hammering down on criminal justice reform. Okay. So I want to, the boldest thing that I'm going to do is reverse the office's position on the death penalty. Right now, Georgia's a death penalty state. All death penalty cases get appealed to the Attorney General. So once I take office, all death penalty cases are off the table. Okay. We will no longer pursue the death penalty in the state of Georgia. It's been proven to be racially biased. It's very costly, and folks have gotten it wrong before, and that's something you can't get wrong. There's no coming back from it. Yeah. Secondly, we create a community outreach division out of the office, which has never been done before. And so through that division, we'll create a summer internship program for high school kids throughout the state. I think one of the reasons that so many kids get tied up in the gangs or just some of the crimes that they get into is because they don't have anything else to do. There are no other opportunities. And then that also ties into building bridges, right? There's always been, like we talked about the history, there's always been a terrible relationship between law enforcement and black communities. Yeah. there's always been a wall. So I want to build a bridge where we're going into communities just to be visible, just to engage in positive, non-confrontational ways. And that's something that'll be easy to do, right, during the first 100 days. But then also working with all DAs across the state, all police chiefs, all sheriffs, to really reshift our resources away from the nonviolent, the low-level offenses like possession of marijuana, and then really put that money, that manpower, and that energy on the violent and serious crimes, the shootings, the carjackings, all of that stuff that really it impacts our safety. Everything gets sent through 911 into local jails. That's if it's a mental health call, if it's somebody addicted to drugs, if it's somebody suffering from homelessness. A lot of times, if they're sleeping in front of a business, they may get arrested. And so I got to tell the story, and I'm sorry I'm talking so long.
Oh, do your thing, man.
2018, I go to Seattle, Washington to study this program they call LEAD, L-E-A-D, Law Enforcement Assisted Diversion. If you get arrested for drug possession or prostitution, instead of taking you to the traditional system that we know, they give you the opportunity to get aligned with community providers, whether it's counseling, substance abuse counseling, or mental health treatment, or job training. If you dropped out of school and you want to get your GED, whatever it is to try to get to the core issue of how you ended up in that lifestyle. So I'm out there, man, and I'm seeing the mayor, the city council, the DA's office, the police, the business community. They all love this program. They're all vested into it. And they had over 500 success stories where these people who came through the program had jobs now. They had apartments now. So I'm like, yo, wait a minute. Seattle figured out a way to change their economy by changing the justice system. Because if you start driving crime rates down outside of your business or outside of your home, wherever, guess what happens? Those property values go up. Property values start to go up. What happens to your schools? Those ratings go up. They figured out a way to tie everything into putting more money back into your pocket just by helping people live better lives where you can, right? You can't do that with violent crimes, but you can do that with the nonviolent crimes and what I call the survival crimes. So during my first 100 days, we want to establish that program. We already have something kind of like that here in Atlanta, PAD. It used to stand for pre-arrest diversion. I forget what they changed it to now, but they work with APD. And just finding more people like that across the state who will work with the police agencies and the DA so that we can make that shift.
Christian, I hope we can see you win that in November. You sold me. You know what I'm saying? You sold me, and hopefully you sold the rest of our viewers and everybody else who's watching this show, especially if you were in Georgia, sold you on your campaign. If people want to learn more about your campaign, if they want to learn more about you, how can they do that?
Or the website, ysmith4ga.com, IG at Christian Y. Smith, Twitter at Chris Y. Smith, Facebook Christian Y. Smith. Yeah. Just Google Christian Y. Smith.
Facts, I did.
Before we go, can I tell one more story?
Oh,
we got time?
Yeah, we got time.
It's about weed, so I got to tell it.
Oh, tell us, man.
It's actually the dopest thing that I've done in my career. And I wanted to bring a full circle moment home when I told the Brian Nichols story, and I said I wanted to be the difference between one black man going to college instead of jail. 2013, my first year as a prosecutor, I get a 17-year-old kid arrested for possession of marijuana. He's in court with his mom, got a couple tattoos, pants hanging down. But I'm like, I could tell that he went all the way like in the street life. So,
Yeah.
I'm talking to the kid like, where you see yourself in 10 years? I said, man, I want to be in the NFL. Like, I get it. I wanted to play in the league too. Oftentimes when we come from environments like we do, we've been conditioned to think that success is athlete, entertainer. So I tell him, if you get this drug conviction, you can't get federal money for college. So now got his attention, got his mom's attention. And I told thousands of kids who came through the courtroom that. And if you're in college and you get convicted of a drug charge, they take your FAFSA away. So now he's like, okay, what should I do? So I go before the judge and I say, hey, Your Honor, I'm going to create a diversion program for this kid to not prove to me, not prove to his mom, prove to himself that he wants to pursue the life he says he wants to have. If he does these 3 things, I'll dismiss his case. He did them. I held my end. And the truth is, I forgot about him. But in 2014, his mom emailed me. And she said, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but last year you gave my son a chance. I wanted to let you know it's not in vain. He's at a junior college in Oklahoma, doing great in the classroom, doing great on the football field.
Word.
Broke down crying at my desk when I read that, man. Because I'm like, that's it. Difference between one black man going to college instead of going to prison.
Yeah.
Story gets better, though. In 2015, she called me. She said, hey, he transferred to the University of Tennessee. Thank you for giving my son a chance. He got a chance to start this year. 2016, she called again. She said, man, you got to come to a game. You got to come and experience this with us. You know, Tennessee, 107,000 people, was loud, was rocking. And, you know, I played football, big football fan. They actually played my university. So my kids and I went to that game. His senior year, I went to 3 of his games in 3 states, here, up in Tennessee again, and we went to Alabama, watched Bama beat the brakes off of him. But most importantly, I went to his graduation and saw him get a degree in communications. His name is Justin Martin. He wore number 8 at Tennessee, started for 2 years. He's down in Houston now. Just signed with it. The XFL is coming back. The Rock and some other folks are bringing him back. You know, so he signed with them. And he was at my wedding. You know, I still, you know, he's like a little brother. And so that's what we can do with the justice system. So everything y'all heard me say tonight, like, I ain't saying it to you because I think it's going to work. I'm saying it to you because I know it's going to work. I got the receipts. I got the college degree with Justice's name on it to prove it. I can tell you about Raven Young. She was 22, pregnant, arrested for the same thing, possession of marijuana, high school dropout. I said, Raven, if you go get your GED, I'll let this case go so that you can make your son's life not as hard before he even get here if you got this conviction on your record. She used to call me every week, let me know how her classes was going. Got her GED, and then she went to college. And I could tell you a bunch of more stories like it, man, but it's time that, like you said, representation matters, man. Having somebody as a big, significant role in the justice system who has lived it and seen it and then worked in it, that's what we need to get the changes we need, man. So thank y'all for having me on the show, man. This was dope conversation.
No
you
problem.
did your homework. I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
High level of conversation. Christian Y. Smith, thank you for coming through tonight, man. You know what? I'm rooting for you. I try not to be partisan, but I'm definitely rooting for you.
Hey,
Yeah,
let's
so
get it.
this is happening. Thank you again for coming through. And that's Cash Color Campus, a high level of conversation on LivehiphopDaily.tv. And this episode is sponsored by Bouquet Rolling Papers. Nice, man. Pictures, man. Bro, that was excellent, man.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all.
Amazing stories at the end.
No, thank you, man.
All right, so we're going to take some pictures for a second. We're going to take some pictures, and then after that,
Yeah,
hopefully
make
meet some
history
folks
real
and-
quick and get you right there, man.
You want me to stand up or something?
Oh yeah, no, stand up, please. Gotta get you in all the greatness. Whole suit. Come on.
Wait till you meet this guy.
Come on. Come on.
Let me, so my pockets don't be looking
Look at
out.
this, man. Just fit in the description.
These lead the nation pit. Man, fit the description for sure.
Glasses starting to fall in.
Clean. Okay.
I just take
Yeah. Close ups. Clean.
Thank you.
Golden.
Thank you. This is dope.
No, appreciate you, man. That was really amazing. Definitely got my vote. like that was solid. That was solid.
That makes 2, man. What?
Appreciate it.
Thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank y'all for what y'all
Man,
doing,
my
man.
goodness.
Like stories like what y'all doing need to get out.
Teamwork.